The folder sat between us on my dining table when my son announced my house was already sold in his head. As I smoothed my napkin, I didn't raise my voice, just watched his confidence settle in like it belonged there. While the paper edges caught the light, they felt sharper, louder than his calm explanation of my future. The same folder pressed into the table as I realized this wasn't concern, it was a takeover dressed as family. That's when it hit me, he wasn't asking for permission. He was counting on my fear. Still leaving that folder untouched, I handed him something he didn't expect, a boundary he couldn't cross. We're about to begin, but if you'd like, share where you're joining from. It reminds me this story doesn't echo into silence, it lands somewhere real. Drop it in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe. The first thing I noticed was how Nathan wouldn't meet my eyes. He sat at my dining table like a guest in a house he'd already mentally packed into boxes like the oak floors. The framed wedding photo, the little scuff on the baseboard from when he learned to ride a bike didn't belong to me anymore. I'd set the table the way I always did, when I wanted the evening to feel safe. Linen napkins, the good plates, rosemary chicken with lemon, the meal that used to pull my son out of whatever storm he carried home. Lily complimented the flowers. Nathan asked about the neighbor's remodel. We did the polite dance, forks scraping softly, conversation staying on the surface. Then Nathan put his fork down with too much care. "Mom," he said, gentle in that rehearsed way that turns your stomach before your brain catches up. I looked up. "Yes?" He leaned forward, hands clasped. Beside him, Lily's smile stayed in place. Pretty, patient, like she already knew how this would end. Nathan inhaled. "I think it's time we sell the house." For a second, the words didn't connect. Sell the house. My house. The room seemed to tilt, just slightly, the way it does when you miss a step in the dark. I let out a short laugh, because the alternative was something uglier. "Sell my house?" Nathan nodded as if we were discussing a cable upgrade. "The market's insane right now. We could cash out and upgrade the family's financial situation." "The family's," I repeated, tasting the phrase like it was wrong. "Nathan, I live here." "I know," he said quickly. "That's part of it. This place is too much for you alone. It's for the greater good." "The greater good," I said, quieter now. "Whose greater good?" Lily leaned in, voice soft enough to pass as concern if you weren't listening. "Margaret, you deserve to relax. You're retired. You could be somewhere easier. Safer." Safer. The word slid across the table like oil. "I'm safe," I said. "I have neighbors. I have Lux. I have a life." Nathan's jaw tightened. That stubborn Lawson said I remembered from childhood, only now it didn't look like determination. It looked like entitlement wearing a suit. "Mom, it's smart," he insisted. "We sell, we reinvest, we build something better. You'd have money set aside, we'd have—" "We?" My voice sharpened before I could smooth it out. He didn't flinch. "Yeah, we. That's what family does. And Dad would have wanted you taken care of." My chest tightened at my husband's name. A man who'd worked overtime so this house would never be leverage in anyone's hands. A man who'd made me promise near the end that I wouldn't let anyone decide my life for me. "I wasn't consulted," I said, forcing steadiness into my hands. "You decided this without me." Nathan exhaled like I was a complication. "We didn't want to stress you out." Lily's fingers rested lightly on his forearm, either soothing him or guiding him. "Sometimes holding on to the past keeps you from moving forward," she said. "The past. As if my life was clutter." I swallowed. "Nathan, you can't sell something that isn't yours." He didn't answer. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a thin folder, then placed it on the table between the bread basket and my plate white paper. Crisp edges. Official weight. My eyes locked on it like it could bite. Nathan finally met my gaze. "Just look at it, Mom," he said. And with Lily's smile still perfectly in place, I understood they hadn't come for dinner at all. They'd come for my signature. For a few seconds, the folder might as well have been alive on my table, quiet, patient, waiting for me to make the wrong move. I didn't touch it. I didn't speak. I let the silence stretch until it felt like a third person at dinner, sitting between the chicken platter and my plate. My hands stayed in my lap, nails pressing into my palm. If I reached for anything glass, silverware, that crisp white paper, I was afraid my fingers would shake. Nathan and Lily took my quiet the way people like them always do, as permission. Nathan started talking again, filling the air with reason. He used the same voice he must use in boardrooms, measured, confident, sprinkled with words that sound responsible. Timing, opportunity, smart move. Each one landed in my dining room like a pebble, building a path that led straight out my front door. Lily leaned in, her tone softer, as if she were offering comfort instead of pressure. "Think about how nice it would be," she said. "No yard work, no repairs, no worrying every time something creaks. Every time something creaks. As if this house hadn't held me upright through grief." My eyes drifted to the hallway where the family photos hung in neat rows, Nathan at 5 with a missing tooth, my husband and me on our last anniversary, the three of us on the front porch the day we moved in. I remembered the smell of fresh paint, and my husband's laugh as we danced barefoot in the living room, giddy with relief because we'd finally done it. I remembered the night after the funeral, standing alone at the kitchen sink at 2 in the morning, listening to the refrigerator hum because it was the only sound that felt normal. They were talking about selling all of that like it was an outdated couch. Nathan leaned forward, trying to catch my eyes. "Mom, you've done enough," he said, voice softening into something that almost sounded tender. "You deserve to enjoy retirement, travel, relax, be taken care of." Be taken care of. The phrase scraped at me. Every time someone says it, they mean comfort, but it always comes wrapped in control. Lily nodded as if she were agreeing with a doctor's diagnosis. "It's not healthy to cling to a house because it holds memories," she added. "Memories go with you, as if love fits neatly into a suitcase." I could have exploded. I could have reminded them who paid this mortgage, who kept this place running, who survived the empty side of the bed when my husband was gone. But anger is easy to dismiss. Anger makes you look unstable, irrational, emotional, and I could already see Lily filing that away for later. So I stayed still. I breathed. I listened. Nathan slid the folder a fraction closer. "It's straightforward," he said. "We just need to get the paperwork started." Again. The grandfather clock, down the hall, ticked steadily. The sound my husband used to joke was the house's heartbeat. "Still here," it seemed to say. "Still yours." I pushed my chair back slowly. The legs scraped the hardwood, loud in the tense quiet. Both of them paused and looked up at me, surprised as if they'd forgotten I could move without their permission. "I need a moment," I said calmly. "Excuse me." "Mom," Nathan started. "I'll be right back," I replied, making it sound like a statement, not a plea. I walked out with my spine straight and my heart pounding. In the hallway, the air felt cooler. I reached my bedroom door, closed it behind me, and stood there listening. Through the wall, Lily's voice drifted in low, certain. "If she won't sign tonight," she said, "we'll use the other paperwork." My stomach dropped. Other paperwork? My hand went to the doorknob, and I turned back toward the dining room, suddenly sure the folder on my table wasn't the only thing they'd brought. I went back into the dining room with my face smoothed into something neutral, like a mask I'd worn for years without realizing it. Nathan and Lily stopped talking the second they saw me. The folder sat on my table like it owned the place. "I'm tired," I said evenly. "I'll look at this when I'm ready." Nathan's relief was immediate. He mistook calm for surrender. Lily's smile tightened, but she didn't push. They left soon after. Kisses in the air. Footsteps down my porch steps, their car rolling away into my quiet street as if nothing had shifted. The second the taillights disappeared, the house felt louder. The refrigerator hum, the grandfather clock ticking. My own breath. Under the brightest kitchen light, I opened the folder. My name printed cleanly. Signature lines. Language designed to blur the mind if you read it too fast. And one phrase that made my stomach drop. Authorized agent. I didn't have one. I'd never needed one. I stared until the words stopped swimming, then picked up the phone before fear could turn into paralysis. Grace answered on the second ring, voice thick with sleep. "Maggie? Nathan wants to sell the house," I said. Saying it out loud made it real in a way I hated. And I heard Lily say, if I won't sign, they'll use other paperwork. The silence on the line was sharp. Then Grace exhaled, angry on my behalf. Okay, listen to me. You don't argue with them. You don't explain. You protect yourself. Tomorrow you call David. I don't want to blow up my family, I whispered. You're not blowing it up, Grace said, steady as bedrock. They already lit the match. You're just refusing to burn. She made me answer questions until my thoughts lined up. Was Nathan on the deed? Had I signed anything after my husband died? Did anyone have access to my safe, my documents, my accounts? Each answer felt like checking doors in a house you suddenly realized wasn't secure. By morning, my fear had edges and edges can cut back. David King's office smelled like coffee and polished wood. He took the folder from me with careful hands, the way you handle something you might later have to use as evidence. He read in silence, eyes moving fast. When he looked up, his expression had changed, not shocked, but serious in a way that made my skin prickle. First, he said, we confirm the deed. Second, we make sure there isn't a power of attorney or agency document you don't remember signing. Third, we lock your estate down so no one can leverage family against you. I want my home to stay mine, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. And I want to protect Emma. My granddaughter's name tasted like purpose. David nodded. Then we do it properly. A trust, with you in control and a neutral trustee if anything happens. Funds earmarked for Emma's needs education, health, a start in life without Nathan having any authority over it. The idea landed like oxygen. Not revenge, not punishment, protection. David reached for his phone. I'm pulling the county property record today, he said. If anyone filed anything at all, we'll see it. I swallowed. And if there is something? David's gaze held mine. Then we'll know what other paperwork means. He dialed, waited. Then his face went still, too still. Margaret, he said quietly, covering the receiver. Someone's already been busy. David's office went quiet in a way that tightened my skin. He listened on the phone, then set the receiver down slowly, like it had weight. Margaret, he said, there's a recorded document tied to your address. A durable power of attorney. It names Nathan. Reality shifted under me. That's impossible. I never... David slid a page across his desk. My address at the top. A date from 3 years ago. A notary stamp. My name typed neatly and a signature that looked enough like mine to make my mouth go dry. I didn't sign this, I said. David didn't argue. He just nodded, already moving to solutions. Whether you signed it or not, it exists. And if he recorded it, he's trying to use it. Likely for real estate. My hands clenched in my lap. Lily's whisper came back to me. Other paperwork. What do we do? I asked. We strike first, David said, voice crisp. Today, he pulled a legal pad closer and began writing. We revoke that power of attorney immediately. We draft a revocation and record it the same way. We also notify title companies if someone tries to open escrow using Nathan's authority. We want alarms going off. Can he actually sell my house with that? My voice sounded far away. Not if we stop it before it gains traction, David said. But we don't assume he'll play fair. He tapped his pen. Next, you choose who you trust. If you ever need someone making decisions, it won't be Nathan. It'll be someone you pick. Grace, I said instantly. Good, he replied. We'll do a clean new power of attorney and healthcare directive. Filed properly. Then he looked at me over his glasses. Your estate, I swallowed. I want the house protected. And I want Emma protected. Then we use a trust, he said, and the word felt like a lock clicking. He explained it plainly. The house placed into a trust I controlled, terms that made it harder for anyone to bully or maneuver around me. Emma named for her future school, medical, stability without Nathan able to touch it. And Lily? I asked before I could stop myself. David's brows lifted. Your daughter-in-law? She's Emma's mother, I said, my throat tight. If Nathan's finances are shakier than he admits, I don't want my granddaughter punished for it. David nodded slowly. We can structure support for Emma that Lily can access only for Emma's benefit. Specific expenses. Supervised distributions. It protects your granddaughter without handing Nathan a dime. That's what I want, I said, feeling my spine straighten. We updated my will to clear language, clean lines. Nathan would not inherit the house. He would not be positioned to control anything if something happened to me. When I left, the Los Angeles sun felt too bright, like it could expose every crack in my life. In my car, I opened market listings with shaking fingers. Comparable homes, rising values, numbers so big they made my stomach flip. Nathan wasn't wrong about one thing. My home was worth a fortune. The difference was, it was my fortune. On the drive back, I called Mrs. Patel across the street. Then Mr. Reardon 2 doors down. If you see anyone photographing my house, putting up signs, showing strangers around, call me, I said. Mrs. Patel went quiet, then asked, Did Nathan do something? I don't know, I lied. But I'm not taking chances. When I pulled into my driveway, my breath caught. A man in a polo shirt stood near my lawn with a measuring wheel. Another had a camera pointed at my porch. And in my flower bed, a wooden post had been hammered into the ground fresh, bright, waiting for a sign. The cameraman turned with a practiced smile. Hi, you must be Margaret Lawson. We're here for the listing photos. What listing? I managed. He blinked and checked his clipboard. The Lawson property. Scheduled today. Agent is Kyle Brooks, Kyle Nathan's best friend. My phone buzzed in my hand. A text from Nathan. Don't make this hard, Mom. It's already in motion. The cameraman's smile didn't budge, even when mine disappeared. Listing photos? He repeated, like saying it calmly would make it true. Behind him, the wooden post in my flower bed looked obscene fresh lumber stabbed into soil where my roses were supposed to be. The man with the measuring wheel glanced at his clipboard like my yard was a job site. I lifted my phone so they could see Nathan's text glowing on the screen. Who authorized you to be on my property? The cameraman hesitated. We have authorization. The agent Kyle Brooks scheduled. I'm the owner, I said, voice flat and steady. You're trespassing. Pack up. Now. He tried again, softer. Ma'am, we were told there's a power of attorney. I called David and put him on speaker without taking my eyes off them. David's voice came through sharp and clean. This is David King, attorney for Margaret Lawson. You are on private property without the owner's consent. Leave immediately. If you don't, I will advise my client to call LAPD and pursue trespass and civil action against your company and the listing agent. The cameraman straightened like a string had been pulled. Sir, we were told. That power of attorney has been revoked. David cut in. You've been notified. Leave. That did it. The camera lowered. The measuring wheel folded. They moved fast, then professional panic, the kind that shows up when liability becomes real. I watched them load their trunk and back out, avoiding my eyes. Only when their car disappeared did I realize I'd been holding my breath. David's tone softened just slightly. Margaret, Nathan is using that recorded POA like a crowbar. We're shutting it down, but you need to confront him directly on record. Stay calm. Be clear. And Hoed. I stared at the empty post still standing in my flower bed. He's my son, I said, and it sounded like grief. And he's trying to sell your home, David replied. Those can both be true. I hung up and called Nathan. He answered like he'd been waiting. Mom, what is this? I asked. Kyle sent photographers to my house. His sigh came through irritated, dressed up as patience. I told you it was already in motion. I'm stopping it, I said, a short, sharp laugh. You can't just... Yes, I interrupted, calm as ice. I can. Twist. Power reversal. He thought he had legal control. He didn't anymore. Nathan, I said, I met with David. The power of attorney you're using is being revoked and recorded. And I've changed my estate. You no longer have control over my assets. Silence heavy, stunned. You? What? He finally said. The house stays with me, I continued. And you're not making financial decisions for me ever again. His voice rose. Mom, you're 62. You're not thinking straight. This is exactly why you need help. I'm thinking carefully, I said. There's a difference. You're being selfish, he snapped. Stubborn. Clinging to a building like it's more important than your family. My family doesn't forge documents, I said quietly. He inhaled hard. Forge? What are you talking about? I'm talking about a recorded POA I didn't sign, I replied, and a listing scheduled without my consent. His anger sharpened into something desperate. You're twisting this. Lily and I are trying to help you. You don't understand what's at stake. I understand, I said. That's why your authority is gone. His breathing went tight. Why would you do this to me? I looked at the raw wooden post in my flower bed, like a warning left behind. Because I can, I said. On the other end, his voice dropped low. Fine. If you want to play it like that, I'll do what I have to do. My stomach dipped. What does that mean, Nathan? You'll see, he said, and hung up. As I stood there staring at my phone, the doorbell rang 3 sharp presses. I opened the door to a courier holding a thick envelope. Margaret Lawson? He asked. Yes, I said. He extended it. You've been served. The envelope felt heavier than paper should. I shut the door and stood there, breathing through my nose like I could force my heart to behave. In the kitchen, under the bright light, I opened the packet with a paring knife because my hands refused to do anything gentle. Petition for conservatorship. Clinical. Cold. A request to have the court decide I couldn't manage my own life. Proposed conservator. Nathan Lawson. My mouth went dry. So this was what already in motion meant. Not a listing, not a fight at dinner, a plan to take my choices permanently with a judge's signature. An hour later, the doorbell rang again, firm, impatient. Nathan stood on my porch, jaw tight, shoulders squared, looking like he'd rehearsed both anger and concern in the car. I opened the door and kept the chain on. Mom, he said, careful. We need to talk. We already have, I replied. His eyes flicked past me into the house, checking for witnesses. When he didn't see any, his confidence rose. Let me come in, he said. No. The word landed clean. Final. His nostrils flared. This is ridiculous. What's ridiculous, I said, is you trying to take my life out of my hands. His expression shifted, hurt, then defensive. I'm trying to protect you. You're acting like I'm the enemy. I unhooked the chain and opened the door fully, not to invite him inside, but to step out. I closed the door behind me and met him on the porch, where the neighbors' curtains could see us if they wanted. Nathan blinked, thrown off. Say what you came to say, I told him. He exhaled hard. Fine, you don't get it. This house is equity, just sitting here. Do you know what we could do with it? What it could mean for the family's future? The family, I repeated, keeping my voice even. Or you. His eyes hardened. All of us. All of us doesn't include me, I said, unless I'm signing something. He stepped closer, voice dropping into that pleading tone that used to work when he was a teenager. Mom, I'm under pressure. You have no idea what's on the line. If you'd just cooperate, we could fix everything. There it was. Not my safety, not my happiness. His crisis. You want me to pay for your pressure, I said. His patience snapped. I want you to stop making this harder than it needs to be. I studied him, expensive watch, clean haircut, confidence like armor. And underneath it, panic he couldn't hide. I'll give you one last chance, I said, calm as a locked door. If you respect me, you'll respect my decision. His jaw worked. I do respect you. That's why I'm here. No, I said softly. If you respected me, you wouldn't be filing things behind my back. You wouldn't be sending people to my yard. You wouldn't be trying to take my choices. He bristled. You're being stubborn. And you're being a creditor, I said. That hit. His face flushed, and the mask slid off. I need that house, Mom, he said, flat and raw. Stop pretending this is about memories. It's an asset. Hand it over. Something in me went very quiet. No, I said. He snapped, reaching for guilt like a weapon. You're going to ruin Christmas, Emma's going to ask why Grandma is tearing the family apart. What am I supposed to tell her? Hearing my granddaughter's name used like that made my stomach turn. You tell her the truth, I said. That you tried to take something that wasn't yours. His fists clenched. Then you leave me no choice. I didn't ask what he meant. I turned, opened my door, and walked back inside, refusing to give him the satisfaction of seeing me flinch. In the kitchen, the conservatorship packet lay open where I'd left it. My eyes found the hearing date near the bottom. 5 days. The first night after I saw that hearing date, I didn't sleep so much as I kept watch like my own house had become something I had to guard. By morning, Nathan had switched tactics. No more shouting, no more blunt demands, just pressure disguised as concern. He left voicemails that began with, "Mom, please," and ended with, "We can do this the easy way." Lily texted links to senior living communities, complete with staged photos of smiling retirees. She never wrote "You're old." She didn't have to. The message was baked into every suggestion. Then came the quieter moves. A concerned friend from church called to ask if I was feeling okay. Mrs. Patel mentioned a woman she didn't recognize had walked past my house twice. Slow, studying the windows like she was counting them. One afternoon, I found a sticky note on my mailbox. Neat handwriting. "Call me important Kyle." Like my home was already a transaction and I was just a delay. So I did what I should have done years ago. I made my life harder to access. I bought a small fireproof safe and moved every important document into it. Deed copies, insurance, my passport, the trust paperwork David had drafted. I changed passwords, turned on two-factor authentication, froze my credit. I installed a doorbell camera, then 2 more small cameras along the side gate and back patio. Not because I wanted to live afraid, but because I wanted proof. People behave differently when they know the story can't be rewritten. I also started reclaiming spaces grief had left untouched. The guest room had become a storage unit for someday boxes of my husband's files, holiday decorations I hadn't opened since the funeral. I spent a Saturday dragging everything into the light, sorting, deciding what stayed. Each trash bag felt like a boundary. Each donation pile felt like a future. Grace came over with coffee, and her sleeves rolled up like we were about to build something. "You know what this is?" she said, lifting a box. "This is you, remembering you're not stuck." On Monday, I met with a financial advisor David recommended, Elena Alvarez. Sharp-eyed and calm. She pulled up my accounts and asked questions that landed like flashlights in dark corners. Who had access? Who was listed where? What had changed since my husband passed? When she found Nathan's name on a beneficiary line I'd forgotten existed, she didn't gasp. She just circled it. "We can update this today," she said gently. "Families assume access will stay forever." Assume. That word burned. We updated everything we could. Where we couldn't, Elena gave me a checklist: forms, phone numbers, steps. Not overwhelming. Clear. Like handing me a map after weeks of fog. On the way home, I met a real estate agent of my own, Marisol Chen, in a quiet cafe off Ventura. I told her immediately, "I'm not selling." "I didn't think you were," she said. "But knowledge is power. Let's get you numbers and options so nobody can corner you." She showed me comps, realistic value, what renting could look like if I ever wanted to travel. Choices. Mine. That night, Grace and I booked a small trip for after the hearing, Palm Springs. Sunshine. Quiet. A hotel with no family history in the walls. For the first time in weeks, I felt something like relief. Then, 3 days before court, my phone rang from my bank. "Mrs. Lawson?" a woman asked, polite but tight. "We're calling to verify an attempted transaction. Someone claiming to be your authorized agent tried to initiate a large transfer this morning." My grip tightened. "Who?" A pause then. "Name on the request is Nathan Lawson." The woman from the bank kept her voice carefully neutral. "Mrs. Lawson, I can stop the transfer, but I need you to confirm you did not authorize it." My throat tightened. I pictured Nathan in some office, telling a stranger he had the right to move my money like it was already his. "I did not authorize it," I said. "Stop it." Thank you, she replied. We'll flag the account and add additional verification. Would you like to file a report of suspected fraud? Fraud, a word that should have sounded dramatic. Instead, it sounded accurate. Yes, I said. And add a note. No one has permission to act as my agent. When I hung up, my hands were cold. I wanted to call Nathan and scream until my voice broke. But screaming would give him a story he could sell. So I called David, got an incident number, and saved every detail like evidence. 2 hours later, Nathan called. Not a text, not a voicemail, a direct call, like he believed his voice could loosen my boundaries. I answered on speaker and set the phone on the counter, far enough away that I wouldn't hold it like comfort. Mom, he said, and his voice sounded strained, almost broken. Please don't hang up. I'm listening, I said. He rushed in, words tumbling. I messed up. I know I did. I shouldn't have. None of it should have happened like this. Lily and we got carried away. We thought we were doing the smart thing. I never wanted to hurt you. I swear. I let silence sit between us. Let him feel what I'd been forced to feel. I'm sorry, he said again. Can we reset? Can you reconsider? You tried to move money from my account today, I said evenly. His breath hitched. I don't. I cut in. Not loud. Final. Don't lie to me again. A long pause. Then smaller. I was going to pay it back. There it was. The truth always arrives wearing excuses. Your behavior is unforgivable, I said, the words tasting like metal. Not because you're struggling, but because you decided my consent didn't matter. Mom, please. I will never be manipulated again, I said. Not by guilt, not by paperwork, not by you pretending this is care. His voice sharpened, desperation slipping through the apology. I'm not pretending. I'm drowning. Do you understand? He stopped, like he'd revealed too much. I didn't comfort him. I didn't pounce. I just breathed. Nathan, I said, your crisis does not become my surrender. He exhaled raggedly. You don't get it. I have obligations, loans. If I don't cover. His voice cracked, but it wasn't sadness. It was fear. I could lose everything. I looked around my kitchen clean counters, quiet routines, the life I'd earned, and I thought about how easily he'd tried to turn it into collateral. You should have come to me like a son, I said. Not like an attorney. He went quiet. Then I heard Lily's voice in the background on his end, faint, sharp. Tell her about Emma. My stomach turned. Nathan's tone shifted immediately, softer and weaponized. Mom, Emma needs stability. You know Lily gets anxious. I'm trying to hold everything together. If you'd help, even temporarily. No, I said. Mom, no, I repeated. Don't use my granddaughter as leverage. Silence. Then low. So that's it? I stared at the conservatorship packet on my table. 5 days. A date stamped into my life like a bruise. That's it, I said. I ended the call and opened my laptop. I photographed the clutter I'd kept out of habit, an unused lamp, an old side table, boxes in the guest room, and listed them online one by one. Clearing space, reclaiming the house from the inside. The first item sold within 15 minutes. As I typed the pickup time, my phone buzzed with a courthouse notification David had set up. New document filed ex parte request. I clicked it, and my blood went cold. Nathan wasn't waiting for the hearing anymore. He was trying to move it up. David called before I'd even finished reading the ex parte filing, his voice tight with controlled anger. Don't spiral. This is theater. He's trying to get an emergency order before we can respond. Can he? I asked, staring at the screen like it could bite. Not if the judge sees what we're seeing, David said. Forward me everything. Then go do something normal for an hour. Eat. Shower. Anything. I'll handle court. Normal felt like a foreign language, but I listened. I made toast I didn't want. I stood under hot water until my shoulders unclenched. When I checked my phone again, David had texted, Ex parte denied. Hearing stays as scheduled. Relief hit so hard I had to sit on the living room floor and breathe like I'd been underwater. Then Elena called the next morning. Careful, Margaret. I want you to hear this from me. Nathan's accounts, there are signs of distress. Missed payments. A line of credit flagged. It's consistent with what happened at your bank. Distress, I repeated. Panic, she translated softly. This looks like panic. Over the next week, it stopped being a feeling and became a pattern. Grace slid her phone across my counter with a screenshot from a public filing Nathan's company named in a dispute. Words like default and obligations and failure to meet terms stared back at me in black and white. Marisol forwarded a market update. My neighborhood's values were still climbing, offers coming in high even for homes that needed work. My house was rising, Nathan was sinking, and he tried to tie my ankle to his. That night, I walked through my home room by room, turning on lights like I was checking for intruders. But what I was really checking was myself, how I felt in these walls now. I loved this place. I always would. But lately, it didn't feel like sanctuary. It felt like a battlefield, and I was tired of living where every memory could be used against me. The next morning, I called Marisol. I want to look, I said. She didn't push. To sell? No, I answered. To move. Somewhere smaller. Quiet. We toured houses that week, condos too loud, townhomes too tight. Then we drove into a neighborhood that made my shoulders drop without me meaning to. Tree-lined streets, porches with wind chimes, the kind of quiet that didn't feel empty. A small stucco house sat at the end of a cul-de-sac with a lemon tree in the yard. Inside, the rooms were modest but warm. No echo, no grand staircase, just space that felt like mine, not my past's, not Nathan's target. In the kitchen, I watched a hummingbird flash at a feeder next door. I can breathe here, I said. Then we write an offer, Marisol replied. 2 weeks later, I signed closing papers with a pen that didn't shake. When the keys landed in my palm, something inside me loosened, like my body finally understood I wasn't trapped in anyone else's story. I didn't sell my old home. Not yet. With David and Elena, I locked it down under the trust, protected and rising in value, mine and Emma's future. Not Nathan's emergency. The day I carried the first box into my new kitchen, my phone rang. Nathan. His voice sounded thinner, scraped raw. Mom, I need help. What kind of help? I asked. A pause, then the truth. Money. Just enough to get through this. Please. I looked at sunlight pooling on my patio, at the lemon tree, at a life quiet enough to hear my own thoughts. No, I said. His breath caught. Mom, I'm not your fallback anymore, I told him. You made sure of that. Silence. Then his voice turned sharp, anger covering fear. Where are you? He demanded. What did you do? Before I could answer, I heard it through my open window, a car door slamming hard somewhere too close. The car door slam outside. My open window sounded like a threat, sharp enough to make my whole body lock. I set the phone down without hanging up and moved carefully to the front window. Staying back from the glass the way David told me, don't give anyone a silhouette. My new street was quiet, the kind of quiet where sudden noise feels personal. A gray sedan sat at the curb. The driver stepped out and waved at someone across the street. Not Nathan. A woman in a USC sweatshirt, mid-30s, hair in a messy bun, juggled grocery bags and called, Sorry, door's sticky. I always slam it. My lungs remembered how to work again. I picked up my phone, saw Nathan was still on the line, and ended the call without another word. Then I locked the window and walked through my new house, my smaller house, letting myself hear it. The gentle hum of the air, the soft creak of wood settling. No echo of old arguments trapped in corners. No long hallway lined with photos waiting to be used against me. Just space. The lemon tree out back was young, its leaves glossy, its fruit small and stubborn. I stood on the patio and watched sunlight pool on the concrete like warm water. For the first time in weeks, nothing in my body was braced for impact. That afternoon, I met David. And for once, I wasn't arriving in crisis. We moved through paperwork like it was routine because it should have always been routine. We've recorded the revocation, he said, tapping a file. We've notified title companies. The new directives are filed. The trust is funded and clean. Nathan has no access, no authority, no gray areas. Gray areas. That was where Nathan lived between love and obligation, between help and control. David was building me a life with fewer shadows. Nathan still tried. He sent an email that began with, "I'm sorry," and turned into paragraphs about miscommunication and pressure. He mailed a bouquet to my old address, dramatic red roses, the kind of apology meant for an audience. He left a voicemail with his voice carefully softened. "I just want my mom back," he said. But I heard what he didn't say. "I want my access back." So I didn't respond. Instead, I answered Grace when she knocked on my new door with 2 coffees and a paper bag of pastries like we were starting a new tradition. "Look at you," she said, stepping inside and turning slowly. "You're lighter." "I'm quieter," I corrected, and the word made me smile because it felt true. We sat on my patio as the afternoon cooled. Grace talked about her niece's new baby. I told her about the hummingbird that visited every morning, fearless and fast. We made plans like normal people farmers market Saturday, a movie next week, small joys that didn't require permission. And slowly, the neighborhood started to know me. The woman with the sticky car door introduced herself as Tessa. An older man named Ron waved every morning on his walk and eventually stopped to talk about the lemon tree like it was a shared project. I found a community bulletin board near the mailbox's yoga in the park, book club, a weekend cleanup, ordinary things that felt strangely radical after weeks of legal language and betrayal. One evening, I went to a small gathering in a neighbor's backyard. Someone handed me grilled corn on a paper plate. Someone asked what I did before retirement, and I realized my answer didn't have to include mother as a warning label. On the walk home, the air smelled like jasmine, and the past felt, if not gone, at least farther behind me. Then my phone buzzed. A text from David. "Margaret, check your email. Something was filed against the trust this afternoon." Not from Nathan. From Lily. I read David's email standing in my kitchen, the new one with the window that caught morning light like it was trying to be kind. Lily's filing wasn't a lawsuit. It was a demand her attorney requesting an accounting of the trust for the benefit of the minor child. Polished language that pretends to be about protection while it searches for leverage. David called 10 minutes later. "It's a fishing expedition," he said. "She's testing the fence to see where it bends." "And does it?" I asked. "No," he replied, and I heard quiet satisfaction. "Not the way we built it." After that, the legal noise faded into the background like traffic you stop hearing once you know it can't hit you. David handled the letters. Elena watched my accounts like a hawk. The trust did what it was designed to do: stand between my granddaughter's future and other people's panic. What surprised me was what filled the quiet once fear loosened its grip. I started showing up places. It began at the community center, where a flyer promised women and money, practical steps at any age. The old version of me would have assumed she didn't belong in a room like that. The new version walked in and sat in the front row. The women there weren't looking for inspiration. They were looking for clarity, how to read a bank statement, how to protect credit after divorce, how to spot a scam call before it takes your rent money. I listened more than I spoke. I recognized the way they apologized for asking questions, like ignorance was a moral failure instead of something people exploit. Afterward, the coordinator, a warm woman named Denise, asked if I'd volunteer. "You have a calm energy," she said. "People trust calm." I almost laughed. 2 months ago, I'd been bracing for my own child's next move. Still, I said yes. Soon I was sitting across from women in small rooms, helping them make lists and call numbers and ask the questions no one teaches you to ask. I wasn't an expert. I was simply someone who'd learned the hard way that family isn't a legal category and love doesn't replace paperwork. One afternoon, a widow my age clutched a folder of documents and whispered, "I'm scared my son is going to take over everything. He says it's for my own good." My chest tightened with recognition. "You're not wrong to be careful," I told her. "And you're not cruel for setting boundaries. You're just awake." Nathan drifted farther away as my life filled up. His messages came less often. When they did, the tone shifted: less demand, more nostalgia. A photo from an old Christmas. A line that said, "I miss you," as if missing me was the same as respecting me. Then, one Sunday, he showed up where he couldn't control the lighting. I was watering the lemon tree when his car rolled into the cul-de-sac. He parked and sat for a full minute before stepping out. He looked thinner, worn in a way money can't polish. "Mom," he said carefully. I didn't move toward him. "Nathan, I didn't know you lived here," he admitted. "I didn't want you to," I said, and watched the truth land. He swallowed. "Can we talk? Like normal people?" "I'm not mad," I replied. "I'm clear." His eyes glistened. "I've lost a lot. The business. It's not good. Lily." He stopped, jaw tightening. "Everything's falling apart." I let silence hold his confession without rescuing him. "I'm sorry," he said again, quieter. This time it didn't sound like a tactic. "I accept that you're sorry," I told him, "but I'm not going back." "So, that's it?" he asked, pained. "You just replace me?" "I didn't replace you," I said. "I stopped letting you own me." When he left, he shut his car door gently like he was learning the difference between power and control. That night I wrote Lily a letter. Not an email. Paper makes you slow down. I told her I wouldn't fight her in public. I told her Emma would be protected school, health care, stability no matter what happened between adults. Then I wrote the line I'd been carrying for weeks. "Emma will never pay for grown people's desperation. Not while I'm alive." I sealed the envelope, and something inside me finally settled. The letter to Lily sat in my mailbox for 2 days before I let myself check for a response. Not because I was afraid of her words, because I was afraid of what it would mean if she had none. Meanwhile, life in my new cul-de-sac kept happening like it always does for everyone else: trash bins, sprinklers at dawn, dogs barking at squirrels like it was their job. I started to realize peace isn't a grand moment. It's the absence of dread when your phone lights up. Denise asked if I'd share my experience at a Saturday event. I almost said no out of instinct. I wasn't a speaker. I was a retired widow with a lemon tree and a family mess I'd rather keep behind locked doors. Then I pictured the widow with shaking hands, whispering she was scared of her own son. I remembered how her shoulders dropped when I told her she wasn't wrong to be careful. So I said yes. The auditorium smelled like coffee and folding chairs. A banner read REBUILD and RISE in cheerful fonts, like pain could be softened with color. When Denise introduced me, I stepped behind the podium and looked at faces I didn't know: women in their 40s, 50s, 70s. Some held notebooks. Some held their bodies tight, like they were daring the world to disappoint them again. My hands didn't shake. That surprised me. "I'm not here because I did everything right," I began. "I'm here because I learned something simple. Love doesn't replace paperwork." A ripple moved through the room, small laughs, not mocking, recognizing. I gave them what mattered without handing over my whole heart. Freeze your credit if you feel uneasy. Lock down passwords. Don't sign under pressure. Don't let anyone rush you with "it's already in motion." Choose your own power of attorney. Put your wishes in writing while you're calm, not when you're scared. Then I said the line that had become my spine. If someone respects you, they'll respect your no. Afterward, women lined up to talk. One asked for a lawyer referral. One asked how to spot help that's really control. One just hugged me and whispered, "Thank you for saying what nobody says out loud." My story started traveling without me. Not the gossip version, the usable version. And the more it traveled, the less power it had to hurt. Nathan tried one last time. A text arrived on a quiet Tuesday. "Can we meet? Just us. No lawyers. I need to explain." The old me would have said yes out of guilt. The new me heard the trap in the conditions. "No. If you want to communicate, do it through David. I wish you well," I wrote back. 3 dots appeared, disappeared. Then, "You're really done with me." Grief rose real, sharp, but not regret. "I'm done being controlled." "That's different," I replied. 2 days later, Lily called. I watched her name ring and felt my body go alert, then settle. Whatever she said, I could handle it now. "Margaret," she said quietly, "I got your letter. I'm listening. I replied. I didn't expect how you handled all of this, she admitted, voice tired, stripped of polish. And I saw the trust notes, the protections for Emma, the way it's structured, so it's for her, not for... She stopped before saying Nathan's name. She's your daughter, I said. She is, Lily whispered, something cracking in her tone. And you protected her, even after everything. I closed my eyes and let that land. I meant what I wrote, I said. Emma won't pay for grown people's desperation. I know, Lily replied. That's why I'm calling. A breath. I'm proud of you. The words were unexpected enough to sting. That night, Denise emailed me a flyer draft for a fundraiser. My name was printed in bold. Featured speaker, Margaret Lawson, protecting your independence. Under it was a note forwarded from someone I didn't recognize. I'm an editor in LA. I heard you speak. Have you ever considered writing your story down? The first time I sat down to write, I told myself it would just be notes, bullet points for Denise's workshops. A few pages I could hand women who needed a script when their families tried to blur the lines. But the cursor blinked like a heartbeat, steady and patient. And once I started, it didn't feel like advice. It felt like air finally leaving my lungs. I wrote at my little kitchen table, the lemon tree visible through the window like a quiet witness. I wrote about the folder on my dining table, the photographers in my yard. The moment I realized help can be a costume for control, I changed names. I kept the facts. I kept my anger off the page, not because it wasn't real, but because I didn't want my story to sound like revenge. I wanted it to sound like truth. The editor who emailed Denise was named Harper Blake. She met me at a cafe in Studio City with a legal pad and calm eyes that didn't flinch when I said, "My son tried to take my home." "Then we focus on what you did next," she said. "Not him. You." 2 months became 6. 6 became a year. My life filled with ordinary peace farmers markets with Grace, volunteering at the community center, quiet evenings in a house no one could weaponize. And threaded through it all was the manuscript, growing chapter by chapter like a wall built brick by brick. Harper sent it to a small press in LA. I expected a polite rejection. Instead, I got a call that made my hands go cold. "We want it," Harper said, excitement tightening her voice. "And not just print audio, too. Talks, workshops." I stared at the lemon tree like it might explain how my private pain had turned into a public invitation. Twist. Unexpected spotlight. I thought I was writing a shield for a handful of women. It became a beacon for thousands. The book came out on an unremarkable Tuesday. The cover was simple, my name, and a title Harper insisted on my terms. I went to a local bookstore expecting maybe 20 people. The line wrapped around the building. Women held copies like proof they weren't crazy. Some cried without apologizing. Some told me, "My daughter is doing this," or "My brother," or "My husband." A few men came too, quieter, buying a copy for their mothers. Within a week, the publisher called. "It's moving fast," they said. Regional lists, then national. By the end of the month, Harper texted me a screenshot at 2 in the morning. Hasson Nonfiction Advice and How. 2. I sat up in bed, the house still and warm, and for the first time in years I cried, not from fear, but from release. My husband's voice flickered through memory. "Don't let anyone decide for you." Nathan unraveled in the only way he knew loudly, publicly, with blame. Grace heard first. His company was done, lawsuits stacking, creditors circling. Then a voicemail from an unknown number, Nathan's voice ragged and furious. "You're making me look like a monster," he spat. "You wrote about me." I didn't call back. David did. Nathan couldn't touch my money anymore, but he still wanted my narrative. He wanted to drag me back into the past, where he could argue, negotiate, threaten. I refused to live there. And then Lily surprised me. She came to one of my talks, not front row, not a scene, just standing near the back with her face bare, like she'd stopped performing. When the crowd thinned, she approached. "I read it," she said quietly. My body went alert, out of habit. "And?" "I didn't realize. How small we made you, she admitted, eyes shining. I'm starting over. For Emma. And for me, I nodded once. Good. That night, as I walked to my car, my phone buzzed with an email from Harper. We just got a legal notice. My stomach tightened. Cease and desist. Defamation claim. Signed, Counsel for Nathan Lawson. Harper forwarded the cease and desist to David before I could finish reading it. That's what a good team does. They take the sharp objects out of your hands before you bleed on them. David called the next morning, sounding almost bored. It's bluster, a scare tactic. Your book was vetted, names changed, facts documented. He can posture, but he can't rewrite reality. I stared at my lemon tree through the kitchen window, its fruit bright as punctuation. So I ignore it? You keep living, David said. Let me handle the noise. The letter wasn't meant for my lawyer. It was meant for me, meant to pull me back into shrinking, apologizing, negotiating my own existence. Instead, I poured coffee and opened my calendar. My life was laid out like a road I'd built myself. Community workshop Tuesday, radio interview Thursday, keynote in San Diego next week. There was no empty space left for fear to rent. The first prestigious invite arrived in a cream envelope women's leadership conference in Beverly Hills. Hotel ballroom. Sponsors. Press. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was absurd. 2 years ago, I was holding a conservatorship petition like a death certificate for my autonomy. Now strangers wanted me on a stage. Grace came with me. She sat in the front row with her chin lifted like she was daring the past to show up. Backstage, a young coordinator asked, "Any nerves?" "I've had worse audiences," I said, and she laughed without knowing why. On stage, the lights warmed my face. I didn't search the room. I didn't brace. I told the story the way I'd learned, to tell it clean, useful, anchored in choice. Independence isn't something you ask permission for, I said. It's something you document. Applause rose like a wave, not for me exactly, but for what the words gave them. Proof. Permission. A map. Afterward, a woman in a tailored suit pulled me aside, voice low. My father's been pressuring my mother for months. I thought I was crazy for feeling uneasy. Thank you for naming it. That was success for me now, watching someone else stand up straighter because my words handed them a spine. Nathan tried to interrupt it anyway. He emailed Harper, then the publisher, then event organizers, complaints, demands, corrections. He wanted a statement. He wanted a meeting. He wanted to be powerful inside the story again. None of it worked. The publisher routed him to legal. Event staff ignored him. Harper texted me. He's shouting into a locked room. Then, on a quiet Sunday, Nathan showed up at my door. He stood there with his hands in his pockets, shoulders rounded like he'd finally run out of ways to be bigger than the moment. I opened the door and didn't invite him in. "Mom," he said quietly. "Can we talk?" "You can talk," I replied. "I shouldn't have sent that letter," he said. "My lawyer thought it would pressure you." "Did it?" I asked. "No," he admitted. He stared at my welcome mat like it might give him a script. "I'm trying to fix things. I don't want us to end like this." "I didn't choose this ending," I said. "You did. When you tried to take my life out of my hands." His jaw tightened. "I was desperate." "I know," I said. "And you still did it." Silence. A breeze moved through the lemon leaves outside. Somewhere down the street, a child laughed bright and careless. "So what now?" he asked. "Do I just disappear?" "Now you live with the consequences," I said. "And I keep living with the freedom I earned." He studied me. "You're really happy." "Yes," I answered. He nodded once, like something inside him accepted my happiness wasn't negotiable. As he turned to leave, his phone buzzed. He checked it, and his face drained of color. He looked up. Urgent. "Mom, you need to be careful." "Why?" I asked. His eyes flicked down the street, where a car slowed too slow like it was searching for an address. "Because," he said tightly, "Lily isn't done." The car that had slowed on my street kept going. It rolled past my house like it was looking for something it couldn't find, then turned the corner and disappeared. For a long moment, I stood in my doorway with my hand on the frame, watching the quiet return to its usual shape. Wind chimes down the block, a lawn sprinkler ticking, the faint laughter of kids somewhere I didn't have to worry about. Nathan's warning sat in my chest like a pebble, but it didn't grow into panic. Not anymore. I called David, and he did what he always did, turned fear into procedure. He sent a formal notice to Lily's attorney, tightened the privacy around my address, and reminded everyone involved, publisher included, that harassment and intimidation didn't magically become family business because it was wrapped in holiday language. A week later, Lily's attorney backed off. No apology, no confession, just a quiet retreat when the fence wouldn't bend. That was the final lesson. People don't always admit they were wrong. Sometimes they just lose access and move on. In the months that followed, my new house stopped feeling new and started feeling like mine in the deepest way, like my nervous system trusted the walls. Morning became a ritual instead of a recovery. I'd open the blinds, watch the hummingbird flash at the feeder next door, and make coffee without checking my phone first. The lemon tree got taller. The fruit got heavier. One afternoon, Ron from down the street handed me a small bottle of homemade lemon syrup like it was neighborly currency. Grace and I filled my calendar with ordinary joys, bookstore events, community center workshops, quiet lunches where nobody asked me to explain myself. I kept speaking, but the stages changed. Sometimes a conference hall, sometimes a church basement, sometimes a Zoom screen full of faces from places I'd never been. Emails started arriving from women in other states, then other countries. They'd write things like, "My son says I'm too old to manage my own money," or "My brother wants me to sign paperwork I don't understand." And every time, I'd hear my own old fear in their words. So I answered the way I needed someone to answer me back then, with clarity, not drama. Here's what to lock down. Here's who to call. Here's how to say no without apologizing. My impact grew in a way I didn't chase. It simply spread, like a light passed from hand to hand. Nathan, meanwhile, stopped trying to pull me back into the story. The messages slowed, then changed, shorter, quieter, finally stripped of strategy. Once, he sent a single line, "I'm in counseling." Another time, "I'm trying to be better." I didn't reply with warmth or punishment. I replied with truth when it was needed, and silence when it wasn't. Over time, the silence did what arguments never could. It taught him the boundary was real. The last time I saw him was at a distance across a parking lot outside a coffee shop near my old neighborhood. He looked up, recognized me, and didn't walk over. He just nodded once, small and accepting, then got into his car and drove away. And I felt something I never thought I'd feel about my own child. Peace. Not because it didn't hurt, because it no longer controlled me. On a quiet evening near the end of the year, I sat on my patio with a blanket over my legs, the air cool and clean. The lemon tree rustled softly above me. Inside, my house glowed warm through the window, simple, safe, mine. I thought about the woman I'd been at that dinner table, staring at a folder like it was fate. I thought about the woman I was now, still tender in places, still human, but unmovable where it mattered. They tried to take it all from me, but in the end, I took it all back on my terms.